You'll see a pattern emerging here in international relations theory. Thomas Hobbes wasn't writing about the international system, but later authors took his work, applied it to world politics and called it realism. John Locke wasn't writing about the international system, but later authors took his work, applied it to world politics and called it liberalism. Karl Marx wasn't writing about the international system, but later authors took his work, applied it to world politics and called it, well, they called it Marxism. Actually, some called it international political economy and others called it critical political economy, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just stick with Marxism. So, Lenin is our first port of call in applying Marx's work to the international system. But Lenin wasn't only inspired by the work of Marx, he was also heavily influenced by an English economist called John Hobson. Hobson wrote about imperialism, which he referred to as a vast system of outdoor relief for the upper classes. For Hobson, the foundation of imperialism, or as he called it, the economic taproot of imperialism, was to be found in domestic underconsumption. Elites make a lot of money, but have no way of spending it or investing it at home. He tells us that the economic concentration of power supports an oligarchic political elite. This facilitates further economic inequality. Increased productive efficiency under capitalism produces wealth which is channeled to the owners of capital in the form of profits. Oversaving from profits combined with underconsumption by the poor leads to the accumulation of vast sums of money by the rich which cannot be spent or invested domestically. As such, investors take their money overseas and accordingly foreign investments need to be protected, leading to political and military intervention. Put simply, Hobson says that capitalist societies had three problems: overproduction, underconsumption, and oversavings by the capitalists. Now, owners of industry were paying the lowest that they could get away with, so their profits and goods piled up. So who was going to buy their stuff? Well, they're going to have to go overseas to do that. So, Lenin, drawing on Hobson and Marx, tells us that capitalism was driven abroad in its relentless pursuit of cheap labour, raw materials, new markets and investment opportunities for excess capital. This leads to the creation of empires. Competition continues between corporations and banks internationally, and this process will inevitably lead to war. That last part there, on the inevitability of events, and in this case war, is something that's buried quite deep in Marxism. The reason for this is that Marx had read Hegel, and some of Hegel's ideas stuck with Marx. In this case, it's the idea that certain events are inevitable or unavoidable. As ideas go, it is quite wrong. Anyway, back to Lenin, who argued that capitalism itself was changing into something called monopoly capitalism, under which there is an important two-tier structure to the world economy: the core, the developed world, and the periphery, the less developed world. This presents a problem to Marxism. There is no longer an automatic harmony of interests between all workers. If we look to the words on Marx's tombstone in Highgate, workers of all lands unite. Well, they're not going to unite. Lenin tells us that the bourgeoisie in the core countries use the profits derived from exploiting the periphery countries to buy off their own workers. That unity, that class solidarity is broken by imperialism.